talked to Marcos Dimas and Humberto about Realidades in Oakland, in the early 70s. So I talked to both of them, and they both gave me the stories.
Thank you. Thanks.
So
could you introduce
sure.
yourself for our audience?
Yep, Christopher Bell, East Harlem historian. I grew up on 104th Street between Madison and 5th and Madison Park Avenue. I published this book 7 years ago, and this book is called East Harlem Remembered. And so I talked to many people who lived in East Harlem or was part of the community and helped it grow. Anyway, I had the honor to Marcos Dimas and Humberto Cintron, Realidades, and they both told me the story in the early 70s how there was no Latino programs on TV that supported or showed or broke down the Latino community or the contributions of the Latino community to New York City. So Humberto and Marcos told me how Realidades was founded, how it took some struggle. When it aired for almost 6 years, it really was the first time they gave a vehicle to Latinos to become producers and tell their story from their point of view.
And that photo in the middle there is like a protest photo.
Well, this is from Harlem Aristani. He was nice to give me this photo because it really highlighted what the Barrio was like. This is from the mid-60s. And it says this is Casa Evita. And you see on the side other clothing stores, but that's what you saw was like years ago. Tenements. And you would come in and you would see tenements upon tenements. What was good about it, that everyone in East Harlem knew each other. If you lived on 104th Street, you knew everyone on that block. You didn't have to go to 105th Street because everything was there on that block. The stores, the butcher, the delicatessen, the small soda fountain shop. You went there and you got your egg cream, you got your bread, your meats, everything on that one block. If you were not from 104th Street, you better have an excuse, or else they will interrogate you. Why are you here? But it was in a nice way. And everybody who lived in the same building practically came from the same island or town from Puerto Rico, or from the South. And later on, in the 3rd Avenue was from the Italian part, and the upper part was Irish. But that's what East Harlem was like: blacks, Puerto Ricans, Italians, Irish, Jews before. This picture really typifies what East Harlem was like. Tenements. You knew everyone in your building.
Christopher, what year was that about?
The picture? Still 60s.
60s.
Yeah, 60s, early 60s.
Super. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
From 71, 1970, not 27. 1971 to 1977. And this is an exhibit that shows, we'll be able to show some of the episodes of the show itself and other activities related to it somehow in the community. Either subjects matter of one of our shows or people who have been involved with us. This was a community-based effort that grew out of the what was called the War on Poverty in those days. And I was working at the Community News Service, and we were covering programs and activities and individuals doing work in the New York City communities, inner city communities. And we realized that public television had not been covering anything positive about our community at all. They had a program called the 51st State. And a fellow who had come to East Harlem and done a film training program for kids came to me. I was a leader of an organization in the Harlem and East Harlem community called the Community News Service, and we provided news from the inner city to all of the news outlets because nobody was covering our communities. They came to me and I told them that this existed, that this was a condition that was happening in public television as well as in commercial television. There was no coverage except negative coverage of Puerto Rican and Latin American communities. And at that time we established a protest at Channel 13, and we were walking in front of the station offices protesting that public television was not giving coverage to the Puerto Rican community. I happened to be on the picket line because I was a community activist at the time. And in defense, the president, Jay Islin of the station, WNET, Channel 13 in New York City, public television, was a client of mine through the community news service because we provide news programs and information through this poverty program that was funded by the War on Poverty. But he didn't know who he was talking to. He thought I was just a person off the picket line. So at that time he says, oh, well, we receive the community news services news programs. They report inner city community news every day, and we're in touch with a fellow named Humberto Cintron who runs a community news service, and we were in the process of talking to him about doing something for the 51st State, which is our program about inner city communities. I was on the picket line, but he did not know that I was the director and editor of the community news service. So at the meeting, Julio Rodriguez, who's here right now, said to him, well, if you get news from the community news service, why don't you talk to the people at the community news service to give you some news to cover? And why don't you, if you're receiving it, if you're receiving the news service, it's free, it's a free program, how come you're not following some of the stories that they're giving you if they're reporting it to you? So Jay Islin, who was the president of the WNET, said to us, understanding that we were picketers, oh, we are, we're going to Channel 13 and we're working with a fellow named Jose Garcia, who's a filmmaker, and he's going to be providing us with a program. What he didn't know was that I was the director of the community news service, and he also did not know that Jose Garcia had been running a summer program training inner city youth in filmmaking. So when he finally did, we said, well, if we talk to this fellow Cintron that you're saying to me is providing news for you, are you prepared to hire him to come and do a program for you? And of course, Jay Islin said, yes, of course. In fact, he said, and it's funny because it was true, he says, we have a news crew going out to him right now. So everybody kind of looked at me and said, is that true? Well, they didn't say that at that time, but at the end of the interview with me, the fellows, Julio Rodriguez and all the people that are here now at this event, came to me and said, well, listen, if the community news service has been providing material, the station's not doing anything, he said he would hire you if you applied for a job. So I said, well, let's try that out and see what happens. The next day, I walked into Jay Islin's office at Channel 13. I dropped my resume on his desk and I said, I'm here. I walked past his secretary and everybody. And he says, what do you mean you're here? I said, well, when I talked to you yesterday, you said you would hire Humberto Cintron if he was willing to take a job at Channel 13. He He says, yes, well, what's that got to do with you? I said, I am Humberto Cintron, and I'm applying for that job right now. When do I start? And that's how Channel 13 got Realidades. We came there. We had the program that Jose Garcia had been filming for the 51st state. And I just started working. He had to hire me on the spot, and he hired me on the spot. And then I started, since I still was working at the community news service, I had contacts all over the city in inner city communities with people who could provide me with material to start a program. We got a grant of $60,000 to do what we then entitled Realidades, which means realities in Spanish. And I left the community news service and came to work for Channel 13. And that's how we got started with this program. And we were on the air for 7 years after that.
Thank you, Roberto, for that excellent presentation and the history of the struggles in the barrio and the media. That's superb.
Del niño hasta el cielo, donde era abrazada por Dios e inmediatamente colocada como ángel entre las estrellas. Los amigos y la familia bailaban hasta la madrugada.